Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday edition of Andy the Gabby Cabby. Same time, same place in the garage. Hope everyone is okay this evening. Good to see all the regulars in the house. Usually I'll go through and say hello to everybody, but we have a guest in this evening, so I'm going to forego that. As the title of the live stream goes, I'm going to be having a conversation with an armed forces veteran who I will bring on very shortly. Now, just to kind of introduce this, picture the scene. You decide you want to join the Army, the Navy, or the Air Force, whatever it happens to be. You go and serve your country with honour for 10, 20, 30 years, however long your service is. Come out, you have injuries, you have psychological problems, and really you need help from the MOD, Veterans UK. And you think, oh, yeah, that's all right. They'll help me. It's not as simple as you're led to believe. It really isn't. And so some of this stuff is awful. I've spoken to who we will refer to as Veteran A in the week and got an outline of the situation, where they're at, and, the contacts they have as well. And hopefully we can start getting some attention to this very important issue. So before I bring him on, I ask two things. Number one, hit the like button, the thumbs up on this live stream, because it will help the algorithm spread it around everywhere. And if you have social media of any kind, Twitter, Facebook, anything like that, please share this as well, because, situations and subjects like this don't come along every day, and we need to get it out there. So without further ado, I will bring on tonight's guest, Veteran A. Here he is. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm not too bad at all. How are you?
I'm fine. Looking forward to this next hour on the show.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, when we were talking in the week, you have a social media presence, and you've been working tirelessly for, it seems like, forever to try and bring attention to this issue, and particularly with your own situation, your own circumstances, and you feel like you're banging a head against a brick wall. And where we've been speaking, hopefully we can start to get a conversation going, start to get people noticing what's going on. So, first of all, obviously, don't say anything that might reveal too much, but when were you in the Army? How long did you serve, and what kind of things did you actually see when you were in the Army?
Well, I joined the sort of what was known as a TA at the time. It's now the reserves, sort of 90s-ish, I'll say. I'll not put a specific date on it. And then that sort of, when I joined up, then the culture was drink, and I was into my fitness. So I'd done a number of years. I enjoyed what I was doing, and instead of going back through the back door, which is known as an S-type, you can join another unit, put in a transfer. I walked back into the careers office, and the next thing I'd signed up to join the regular army. Done my phase 1 training at Glencoe's Barracks, finished that, down to Catterick phase 2. Then I was basically told to try and go get a passport in a bag, and I was like, great, we're doing some recruiting. A lot of the battalions all over the UK had started recruiting for Fiji, and went home, collected my passport in my bag, reported back to the barracks. I was flown down to London. I was then flown from London to Belfast, arrived at Belfast City Airport and told to look for a little sign called Asset on the airline on a door, which never existed. The door opened, handed over my identification card, told to change into green kit, and within an hour I was in the back of a bread van, and I didn't know where I was or what I was doing. Was driven by van to an Irish base, asked if I'd ever been in a helicopter before, explained I thought I was going recruiting, I didn't know where I was, what I was doing. Put on a chopper, told to go on for the front. If you go on for the back, your head will be taken clean off your shoulders. In a helicopter, dropped off in the middle of a camp, and I was in South Armagh, 6-month tour. Didn't know where Ireland was, didn't know South Armagh, had no Northern Ireland training, and that was basically sort of, my apprenticeship had ended as you would say, and I'm now in the regular army as a regular soldier in South Armagh.
Okay.
And then, so that 6-month tour, I sort of grew up quick, learnt my trade pretty quick because there's no vehicles to leave the camp. Most of the time you were on foot. If there was rain or fog or snow or whatever, the helicopters wouldn't fly. So if you're 15 miles away, you need to have 15 miles back to camp, through water, through whatever. You don't use bridges, you don't cross, all that carry on, the Northern Ireland stuff. So that was 6 months. And then what happened is, the end of that 6 months, I was told I was going back to Northern Ireland, which was equivalent to a further 3 tours in another Northern Irish base. And
Right.
there was a couple that happened, couple of accidents, couple of incidents, one death, one near death. I don't know if the other guy survived. And at that point, I was like, do you know what? I think I've had enough. I think I've had enough, because that was equivalent to sort of 2 years-ish solid in Ireland. The battalion had then marked to go to on another tour, which would take me, 2.5 years away. And then it was potentially like the Iraq, Afghanistan was coming. We were never getting a break. And I looked thinking, I can't do 6 tours back to back. I cannot physically, well, mentally take 6 tours back to back. I'm
No.
still fresh in service. What I will say is, I forgot to mention, after the 6-month tour, within the first 6-month tour, my name was put forward as recommendation to be promoted. And I'm like, hang fire. I'm in a team in Northern Ireland. Some of the senior privates in my team had been in 12 years. I've been in 3.5 months. I'm still nervous, anxious, going out on the ground. In my trainee in a battalion, you're looking 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 years. You learn everything about, you start learning your role. They put me forward for that. I declined. When we got on to the second tour, I was told, you will go on an in-house cadre, because we were so short of Lance Corporals. They done it on the camp we were based in, and I got it. I'm a team commander, the only driver in my team, so I was a driver, earpiece in charge of my team, driving about Northern Ireland. Now, I believe that was the moment that everything sort of started not working. The sort of sleep problems, the nervousness, the anxious, everything. I'm like panicking on the ground. I'm having to read a map. I'm having to drive. I've got somebody screaming here. There's an incident happened here. Get the team to here. And I was like, do you know what? I managed it. Hand on heart, I managed it. I gave probably 400% to it. I was never pulled up once. See, looking back now, that was probably the start of the straw that broke the camel's back. Do you know
Right.
this? Between then and now, it sounds crazy. Every job I've applied for, they say to me, what's the worst position you've ever been in? I says, look, told them the story. I says, if I was coming to your company as, I don't know, a bricklayer, the worst case thing that you've got to say to me is, tomorrow you've got to run now 9,000 employees. Nobody's going to lose their life. I could probably learn on how to do that job. Going back to then as a team commander, I had a wagon full of guys that I was personally in charge of. Inexperienced, nervous going on the ground. I looked after my guys. I bought, sounds crazy, a little small pocket coloured TV. They used to put in and watch the racing on the TV. I always made sure I had bags of jelly sweets and, hot chocolate, curry, whatever they needed, right? So they could take it in turns in the back to have a wee snack of fruit. So, and I got more respect for the guys, because that'd be the way, for me as a human being, I get more for the guys by looking after them, protecting them, doing little things like that. I think that point there was me trying to cover up the anxiousness, the sick feelings, the panic, And I look back now, that was probably the moment that changed, I would say, everything. And then incidents back, I got promoted as a Lance Jack.
Right.
Within within 3 months, there was an incident on camp. Helicopter crash, I can say that probably because I don't know what camp it was. And 2 other incidents. One guy lost his life on camp, and another one got injured in another camp. We were called out to the incidents. I think being promoted in the 3 incidents was enough for me to say, at that point, I think my mind had gone. There's nothing I could get a punishment. Yeah.
The helicopter crash, was that due to mechanical failure or enemy fire?
Mechanical failure that was covered over.
Okay.
So basically, I witnessed it from my room window. Back in the days, we had no fridges or anything. So what we used to do is hang our pint of milk out the window on a shoelace if it was the winter, because it kept the milk nice and cool. So the Sergeant Major says, "Whose is that milk?" I says, "I'll go and check." It was my room. I went up, went to pull the string in. Straight in front of me, 300 metres in front, was where the helicopters landed. The next thing I seen, this helicopter upside down, rotor blades off, vehicles getting scrambled, ambulances. And do you know what? It probably took 4 years for the Ministry of Defence to admit that happened, along with the other incidents. They're like, never happened, there's no records. I provided names of people that were all called out, the guys that were injured, blah, blah, blah. So that was sort of the start of everything gone wrong. Promoted, helicopter crash, 2 other incidents, and various things happened in camp. There was people stealing vehicles. There was actually somebody signed out a sniper rifle and was running about the camp. Somebody else stole a vehicle, took it down to the pub, picked up girls, and were driving about Ireland in a big green snatch wagon. He was using it as a taxi. There was people pooing on officers' desks. They were losing the plot. They were cracking it. And I was like, you know what? My specific company was in absolute turmoil in Ireland. And I think it was the first tour and straight into another tour, which was 18 months, going to be a posting that the guys couldn't handle. And it was affecting me. It was affecting me. I was a bag of nerves, waking up in the morning nervous. Where are we going today? Patrol, look after the guys, check the vehicle, make sure it's got fuel. Loads going on at the same time. I was like, do you know what? I done it. And did it prepare me for life now? I don't know. I don't know. So that was sort of the turning point that I can now go back to and go, everything went so wrong.
Right.
For that moment in time.
So you serve, you're in Northern Ireland, you come home to Civvy Street, as they call it, and then what happened then? Did you get a job? Did you have trouble adapting?
Do you know what? When I left, when I was due to leave the military, all I got was a 2-day course on how to write a CV. So I attended that course, and it was like the old, if you're first aid trained, change that to a medic, whatever, class 1. If you drove a snatch wagon in Northern Ireland, put down highly specialist trained. So what they were doing is just tinkering the basics to up your CV. That's all I got. I left the battalion on rear party. So basically what happened is, at that point when I signed off, I only had a couple of months to go. The battalion got posted away somewhere, and they wanted to take me for 6 weeks as a punishment as a punishment for signing off. Stayed with rear party, walked out the gates, and I'm standing like, that's me. That's me. I've left the military. Left the military. I'm standing at a gate, outside a gate. Most of the guys stopped speaking to me because I'd signed off. My close friends sort of stayed with me. They're like, do you know what? You've signed off. But a lot of the other guys would sort of look down at you. The sergeants would pick on you, blah, 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 blah. Because you've signed off, they don't want you pull another veterans down saying, Civvy Street will be great. I'm thinking about doing this. I think you should sign off. They don't want that. No bad mouthing, but pulling veterans into that circle where they're 50-50 gone. Actually, we could sign off and we could be a labour in a building site and then £200 more a week, So you sort of get, not segregated, but you're sort of left in limbo. You're sort of pushed to the side.
Right. Well, I had a conversation with you about a family member of mine. They left the military and went into civilian life, and then something happened 20 years or so after the fact, and then oh hell, it's still in my head. How long was it before you realized that there was a problem. I'm referring to PTSD. Was there a trigger in civilian life where you thought, "Oh shit, I'm in trouble," or "I need help now," or
Well,
how
do you
did
know
it
what?
start?
I think. Do you know what? You're in the military, and you see something, and it's a Friday night, and something's happened in camp, and you've witnessed it. It's like, right, boys, let's go out. We'll have a few drinks, and we'll just wipe this out. So you're off duty. See, you've got the weekend off. You drink the Friday night, the Saturday night, you're drinking. You wake up the Sunday, you go to a pub, play pool, and you're drinking again. You wake up the Monday, you're going for a run. That's gone and done. And that happens for, every weekend. You're off 2 days during the week, you go out, you get smashed. So you come out to Civvy Street and you think, do you know what? That's normal. That's normal. So I've seen me for 2000, I'll say 2000s-ish, before 2010. I'd go to a pub. I'd be the person in the middle of the centre of, not the centre of attention. I wasn't cocky or that, but I'd go to the bar, I'd buy a drink, buy another drink. I'd get to 10 pints, vodka and Red Bull, 10 vodka and Red Bulls, last orders at the bar. I'd go to the bar and say, last orders at the bar, I'll have 2 bottles of red wine, 2 bottles of white, a bottle of champagne, 10 vodka Red Bulls, 10 Smirnoff Ices, right? They'd be lining up the bar and I'd be drinking them as they're gone. The cleaner would be cleaning around about my feet. And that was sort of the way it was for, a good couple of years. But then I started breaking down emotionally. I was found at a war memorial. At the point I was found at a war memorial, my parents had to come down and get me, take me back to the house. What's going on? Had a breakdown. That's where I started, the penny dropped. I was like, there's something, what's not right? What's gone wrong here? What's happening here? Why and the drink was masking over this problem that from service right through. That was sort of after 2010. Reached out to the First Veterans Charity. Don't know if I can say the name of them or not.
I wouldn't, just to be on the safe side. I think I know.
Veterans Charity, deal with mental health. Called up and I says, look, I'm sitting at the side of a main motorway. I've got a can of Red Bull and a pork pie. I'm just gathering my thoughts, but I think I need help. No bother, Mr. McDermott. It's a Friday. What we'll do is we'll promise a call back within 7 working days. And I'm like, can you say that again? She went, well, we'll lodge it and we'll call it 7 working. I said, you know what? I hung up. Middle of the following week, called up again. I says, look, I think I need help. Blah, blah, blah. Right, okay, what we'll do is we'll get somebody to come to your home address. Chap turned up at the home address. Very, what can I say? Eloquent. Is that the word I'm looking for? Eloquent. Anyway, turned up with a briefcase like a retired GP, big moustache, with the twirls on the end, dressed like an officer stroke pilot, and came at the door, knocked on the door, took him into the house. Turn your TV off, please. Why are you watching Sky News? Turn the TV off. Right, what's the noise in the background? It's my wife drying her hair. Go and tell her to turn it off. So went through, turned it off. I thought, that's quite rude. As he's speaking to me, my wife's opened the living room door, and he says, before we start, was there any funny business as a kid? Did your dad beat your mum up or tie you up and put you under the staircase? And I was like, I knew where it was going. He was trying to blame or look for the trauma being based on childhood. Now, looking back now, that report had I said, or it had been on my GP file, Gary McDermott was abused, abused, that would have been a different, that changes everything, because that report stays on your GP file. If you're putting a claim in for your pension, any pension, they're going to sway towards that report. So that was the first time I sort of reached out and realised I needed the help. That charity didn't work, went to another charity. I went back in a full circle, and I'm now back with the original charity, who's had a massive overhaul. They've got outreaches all over the UK. They've got the correct staff. Do you know what? I can't fault them now. But see, back then, it was an absolute shambles. So that was probably the point. I thought, you know what? After 2010, between 2010 and 2020, that's where the penny dropped. It was like, you need to get help. I think I'm now 7 years with no drink. I wasn't an alcoholic. I didn't, in fact, never drank in the house. Never drank in the house, but when I went to the boozer, there was no shut-off switch because that was the coping mechanism strategy to cover up. It was like my brain was saying, well, you need to take this medication because it'll eliminate anything coming out. But what it was actually doing was bringing out different emotions. Do you know what I mean? So that was sort of where the penny dropped, and now obviously I've not had a drink for 7 years. Non-alcoholic, maybe went out once a week, Friday or Saturday night. So I wasn't a weekend sort of binging when I came out, but when I was in, it could be 5-6 days drinking the military, and I think they're trying to change that now, where they're monitoring the drinking and but that was the way it was, and we're not going back a long time. You maybe, between 10 and 20 years, that was the way. So that'll stem all the way back to guys that served in the 80s, 70s, 60s. It's just the way it was.
So with the intervention of the charities, Veterans UK, we'll come on to the physical in a moment. What help did you get in terms of war pension, any disablement benefits, anything like that? What did they do at that point? What did you actually get? Was it enough?
I think my first claim submitted was for 2 injuries. And when I look back now, I think, how have they got things so wrong? So I think at the time for 2 injuries, if you paid under 20%, the 20% is the magic number. If you get to 20%, you've got the option of a weekly and monthly war disablement pension. So everybody in the land puts in, and they'll get, I think 16 to 19 is a bracket. That then is a lump sum of, a couple of £1,000, and then I've only learnt the process and how it all works so in the last 2 years. But then you can appeal that decision. So back in, between 2000 and 2010, first war pension claim, I submit that. Veterans UK say we're giving you between 16 and 19%. I didn't know I could appeal that. You can take that to an appeal, which is sitting in front of a tribunal. In front of you would be a judge. To the right, looking at the table, would be a retired war pensioner, believe senior rank or major above, and to the left would be a medical advisor. To your left would be your representation. Can I say the other charity, because they're the only ones that give you Royal British Legion are the only military charity that will support you with your war pension and Armed Forces compensation scheme. They'll sit beside you. And to my right is somebody from Veterans UK. I didn't know any of that back in the day, and they're meant to send letters out saying you can appeal. If you get to this percentage, we award you this, or you can claim for that. That doesn't happen. It's down to the veteran. I'm only learning in the last 2 years what I probably should have done way back, 20 odd years ago. 20 odd years ago. And I think also, we touched on it during the week. What I've really done in the last 2 years is study the law. I study the law because I've reached out to Royal British Legion. They couldn't physically represent me at first tier tribunals or upper tier tribunals, which we can go into later. A case with the paperwork was so much, 7,000-8,000 pages. It was too much for them to look through. So they have been sending me little, helpers, case laws, which I'll go into later on. Sort of currently, but what I've uncovered is that there's a book called Judge Bano, and it's called the War Pension and Armed Forces Compensation Scheme Law Book.
Right.
And yep, it might be between £70 and £100. I've studied that for 2 years, and what it does is it tells you from a war pension claim from start to finish might be 100 pages. Then it flicks on to Armed Forces Compensation Scheme. It tells you how the process should run. Do you know what? If I could meet Judge Bano, I said at my last upper tier tribunal to the main judge, if I could meet that man today, and I believe he's in his 80s, I'd shake his hand, buy him the best bottle I could get him, and the biggest cigar that I could get, because I've had to teach myself a lot of the law. I've had success. I've helped others get success. That shouldn't be required. The War Disablement Pension Scheme is a scheme set up that does not require legal representation.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But
Mhm.
so that was sort of the first claim in, and then you're looking at 7, 8, 9 years to get one of your joints in your body that's got osteoarthritis accepted. I'll not say which joint. So you put in a claim, and the medical advisor at Veterans UK will say he's not been injured in service. So the veteran
Right.
himself, if he's not requested his army medical file, is in a world of pain. If you don't request your army military medical file, RAF, whatever, so if you don't request a copy of that, you have got 30 to 40 years battle on your hands to say that happened in service, because you can't provide that. I
No.
didn't know this. I didn't know that, but what I did do is I requested my full military medical file and I kept it in a box. That has been gold dust. But then the problem you've got is, I come forward and say, let's just say, for argument's sake, osteoarthritis in my ankle. I put a claim in and I say, my name, my service number, osteoarthritis diagnosed, right ankle. And it may be for an assault course or a repeat injury, then battalion football, whatever it may be. Excuse me. And the medical advisor will look at that and go, no injuries in service. You got your army medical file, military medical file, pull that out, present evidence. Here I've got 9 hospital reports. We've got rolled his ankle, swelling, no fitness, a sick line for a week, physiotherapy. You supply that. And then they go, these documents are now available. They'll link it to another injury. So they'll link an ankle to a back, or they'll name it something completely incorrectly. So instead of osteoarthritis, right and left ankle, it'll say bilateral ankle pain, which means both.
Right.
But they'll not give you anything. They'll give you 0. So then you go, they've gave me 0. What do I do now? I'll appeal it. You go to the appeal, you sit in front of the panel look at pre-service, any history. So for me, if I had rolled my ankle 20 times playing football for a junior football club, or I was on Man United's academy or whatever, they would go, well, is it attributable to service? Is it caused by service? Or actually, did he have that trauma to his ankle before he joined the military? And I get that. Because the MOD shouldn't be paying out for injuries that existed before you joined the army, that maybe only came to light by carrying weight. I get that. But the fact is, they'll name it incorrectly. They'll decline it happened. They'll change the name of the injury. I've had that in about 7 or 8 different injuries. And it's like, how can they be getting it wrong so many times? If you deal with DWP, whether it's Universal Credits, DLA, whatever it may be, PIP, whatever they call it, and you've got a bundle that's 140 pages of injuries, and you submit that, somebody looks at that and goes, yep, and they write down your injuries and go, by the way, he's got knee injury, hip injuries, back injuries, he's dislocated his shoulder. They note that. A medical advisor looks at that for DWP and goes, yep, we agree. You send that to Veterans UK. Yeah, a different planet. Completely different planet. They'll do anything they can. If they think your injuries are got to be accepted, they'll combine them. So it's known as a combined assessment. So you could have 2 hips, 2 knees, and 2 ankles, all got osteoarthritis, and you've got damage to your back after you were in a military car crash, for argument's sake. What they do is they could give you the back 40%, 20. So you could be at 100%. At some point, they can go, let's combine that assessment and accumulate the injuries. They take you for 100% and drop you to 20 and write down all the pain stems from his back. Then you've got 30 years of fighting to get back to where you were. So they've got a lot of, they can move the goalposts at any occasion. They can move it from left to right. They can name the injury incorrectly. They can decline it happened. You've got nobody to complain to. You write to them and they'll go, you've got the right to appeal. You've got the right to appeal. Yeah.
There's a document that you showed me, I'll put on the screen now, where they seem to change or imply things about your life and what you do as well to try and justify why they won't pay you. It was this one here. Completely ignore my concerns. I have in my statement of case the medical advisor writing, see neurology report. He visits his parents frequently when in fact he states he sees them once a month. No mention of seeing them frequently. Also, the medical advisor writes he enjoys cold weather swimming. He's never passed a swimming test in the military and actually hates water. The medical advisor wrote to see the GP file. He can cycle 5 minutes on a spin bike and unsure if at home or the gym. And the GP file states he can't even manage 5 minutes on a bike. So it's the truth. And then something else said in its place. Despicable.
Yeah, I mean, that's done. I know now why that's done and the reason it's done. If they think there's going to be a chance of your injury being accepted, they will go deep and take little bits out of different reports. And then when you read that in a statement of case ready for a tribunal, if you don't challenge that or counteract it with your military medical file, what he says, you go through what he says, he enjoys a spin bike. You put a post-it on the top of that note and you go, please see page 506, little coloured post-its. You go to 506 and you highlight that. When the judge looks at that paperwork and looks at that statement and goes, well, Mr. McDermott, you love cold weather swimming. Well, right, okay. Check my military medical file. I never passed a swimming test. And the reason why? In the TA, you always had an annual swimming test. Jump off the diving board, old Army boiler suit, RAF boiler suit, in the water, tread water, twice round the pool, out. That's your military swimming test done. I went off the diving board, into the water, took a gulp of water, tried to grab on the side of the pool, and I got my head kicked in the pool. And I went under the water, and actually, my life had slowed down, seen bubbles, and I'm like, this is ending me. Try to gulp again, kicked in the head. So I never passed a military swimming test. And I must have been the only person that ever passed phase 1 and phase 2 training without passing a swimming test. But I was fit. So what I used to say was, if you're going to do a river crossing, I'll run 5 miles up the road and find somewhere to cross ankle deep, and I'll meet you at the other side. And that's so. What they'll do is they'll go in and pull out anything they can, to weaken your statement of case. Now, what you do then is you can use judges' directions to pull other paperwork in that's missing. So, could be clinical psychologist report, orthopaedic specialist report. Any of the major charities, Combat Stress, Help for Heroes, whoever the veterans went to, you pull the documents in, it actually makes a mockery of what the medical advisor writes. I didn't know this. Yeah.
So, sorry to cut across you. You mentioned to me off there as well some of the qualifications of these medical advisors. In a lot of cases, you need orthopedics, you need mental health, and some of the qualifications of these medical advisors are very questionable. I mean, you told me in the week what some of them were, and no, it was completely irrelevant to your case. I mean, I don't know if you want to go over that now we're live.
Yeah. So what happened is, nobody had really ever challenged the medical advisor's qualifications and blah, blah, blah. So a group of veterans thought, it's an idea to challenge this and ask, what are the medical advisor's qualifications? And the response was, for Veterans UK, nobody needs to know their qualifications. And that was sort of the end of it. So what happened is, a veteran used a judge's direction, I think, to go to the judge at the tribunal and say, do you know what? Tribunals have sat for, I don't know. Well, War Disablement and Pensions is the oldest claim system in the UK. So I don't know if it was set up in World War I and World War II. So you're probably looking at millions of tribunals have happened, both first tier, which is your low-level tribunal, and upper tier is when you go in front of the top judge. Nobody, and no charities, including the ones that help veterans with war pension claims, have ever sat and thought, who's the medical advisors here? So a direction was put into a judge, a president or judge somewhere, and they confirmed that the medical advisor's qualifications must be released to every veteran prior to a tribunal. But what they will do is hide their names. So you've got Dr. A, Dr. B, Dr. C, Dr. D. So when you look down, there's no names. But people looked into the qualifications and pulled out gynecologists, gut specialists, no orthopaedics, no mental health specialists. When that document came out, and it was all over Twitter, it was all over Facebook, people saying, what's going on here? Within 2 weeks of that being released, 2 job adverts came up. An orthopaedic specialist and a mental health specialist. 75 or 85,000 pound a year, and the stipulation within the job advert must not have served in the British military.
Right.
So that, to me, if I had served in the military and was a medical advisor, I'd be sitting looking at the claims and going, it's Joe, it's Tom, it's Andy, it's Brian, right? Let's look at his claim. Was he injured pre-service? No. Tick the box. What injuries happened in service? Make a list. Is he getting treatment now, and what evidence have we got? Have we got orthopaedic reports, clinical psychologists? Your medication? Is he in a wheelchair? Let's build a picture of what this guy, make a jigsaw, and the end result would go, do you know what? Tom, 30%, Brian, 10%, whatever. That's the way it should work. But what you're getting is you're getting a medical advisor. I think I put some of the, I don't know if I sent you the document. It's got, Mr. A had no injuries prior. Yeah.
Is it the one that starts in June 1998? He had
That's the one.
Yeah. I will read it. I won't display it because it's got your name in it. In June 1998, he had no hip problems at entry. I assume that means entry into the military, does it? In September 1999, he injured his right groin / hip, according to documents seen by me today, but not available to me at the time of decision. In February 2002, he had groin / hip pain, according to documents recently supplied to me, seen today, but not available to me at time of decision. In May 2002, he had left groin pain and the possibility of a hernia or groin strain. In June 2002, he had left hip pain, according to documents recently supplied by me today, but not available to me at the time of decision. In August 2002, his left groin pain was reviewed by a surgeon who noted the relationship between the pain and exercise, and no other abnormalities were found. In March 2003, he was graded P2L2 at release. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that for us.
Yeah, so basically where that one went was put in a claim for, obviously, my hips. They looked at it and named it sciatica.
Right.
And I was like, right, okay, well, I've not got sciatica. There's no documents with sciatica. Then what happened is I submitted another claim, and it says Mr. A has no hip injuries in service. Those hip documents that you were talking about sent, 1998, 2000, 2001, 2002, I think were emailed in something like 84 times to Veterans UK as a bundle.
Right.
And then we've now received the documents. He wasn't signed off sick. And I'm like, right, okay. Within that is I think it mentions there about sports injuries caused with sports. I then submitted that again, and then I had no further comment will be made.
Right.
So between putting the first claim and second claim, third claim, I've got that one over the line. Hips are now accepted. But these documents were always available to the medical advisor because they were on my military medical file when I left. So my military medical file does not change now, and in 50 years' time, it doesn't change. The day I walk out the gates, that's closure on your military medical file. So what happens is they don't look what they're wanting is they're wanting the veteran to supply the evidence. We're actually by, I think, the service pension order and in Judge Bano's book, it states the medical advisor must not only look for the injuries claimed for, but must look for all injuries available to him with the evidence in front of him or her. So to me, that's your military medical file. If that's 10 pages or 300 pages, they look through that and either award you it or put a marker on it to say, do you know what? he might come forward after a car crash in the camp with injuries A, B, C, and D. What is he claiming for? Injury A. Right, B, C, D, and E. Let's put a marker on the file. If he comes forward in the next 40 years, we know what's happened in service. It cuts out all that problem. But what you're getting is a hamster on a wheel gone. Computer says no, different injuries. You know, and that can take 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Some people are fighting for 20 and 30 years, 33 years. And you're talking about between £8 a week and £22 a week. So £8 is some of the increments for your war pension. So they go a way out their way. And I thought it was just me. I'm saying, is it just me? No, it's not. You reach out, hundreds, thousands coming forward now going, I'm the same. Do you know, people that have had no, they've got rods in their neck, they've had barrels dropped on their heads, doing fueling duties. The medical advisor writes massive improvements. That's somebody that works in an office. But on his civvy GP file, he's got these injuries are getting worse. He's got rods in his neck. He was medically discharged. How can these injuries get better? You know, an amputee, what, rub a bit peat on it and it'll grow back in. I know that's the extreme, but that's the level to go to.
Right. I mean, I've got a friend of mine. I've seen his name pop up in the comments. He made a comment to me. It took him a better part of 30 years after discharge to get what he's got now. So that does back up in some way the difficulties. There's a couple of other documents here. I think you've covered them. Evidence can be either oral or written, and all of it requires equal consideration. The applicant's statement can all be accepted as evidence, and due regard must be paid to them. The medical advisor has a responsibility to ensure that he has all the relevant evidence before him when considering medical questions. If he has any reason to think there may be other relevant evidence, it's his responsibility to make certain that every reasonable effort is made to obtain the missing evidence. He should not decide without it. It's sometimes possible for the medical advisor to certify acceptance of disablement, knowing there's some evidence which is not before him, but confident that it will not cause him to alter his decision. But he must not reject unless satisfied there's no other relevant evidence. So there's that bit there. And also, another thing you sent me, I'll just find it. Update was similar to presentation of recent conference, discussion around performance of several individuals raising concerns. Role of medical advisors was discussed, highlighting dissatisfaction from both clinicians and veterans. Veterans on the group highlighted that the compensation claims process was by far the most stressful element. I mean, that backs up what we've been discussing this evening. Yeah. Veterans were expected to provide evidence on what their final capability might be after recovery when they were only at the beginning or partway through, and were certainly not in a position at this point to be answering these kinds of questions. Calls for more joined up and shared KPIs, as it was recognised that the current KPIs had their limitations. Basically, again, backing up everything that you've put forward this evening. It's a mess. What would your advice be to somebody coming out now who's in the situation that you and many others are finding themselves in and needs to make a claim, needs the support? What would you say to them?
I'd probably say, when you've put your years, I don't know if it's still a year's notice that you put in, is request your full military medical file, copy your dental records. If you've been involved in any incidents, say it was Afghanistan or say it's in Bosnia or wherever it may be, note your colleagues that were on it with you, who was involved, what happened, when and where, and keep that, because that is vital documents that you'll need coming out. If you put them in a box into your attic, get a copy of your GP file from being born right up to military, and a copy of your GP file for when you leave service until you put in your first claim. So if a veteran leaves and within 12 months, he can go, no injuries in service, here's what I've got from service, he was involved, here's the people that were involved in the incident, here's my GP file to back up, I've got a PTSD diagnosis, for argument's sake. You're actually taking 99% of the work's done because you've already got that evidence here. The problem you've got is you'll have veterans coming out that can't wait to get out. They'll go and go on a job as a scaffolder. Doing job as a scaffolder, you go and put in a claim 4 years after you come out the military. They'll do a back trace to your job and say, damaged shoulder, that'll be scaffolding. The veteran goes, no, it happened in service. The veteran says it happened in service. What happened? I was lifting barrels in Afghanistan. Can you provide us the evidence? Veterans UK is sitting with the evidence. They know because it's on his military medical file, but the veteran's not got a copy of his military medical file. So you can see why, if you get these bundles in place, you're starting to piece the jigsaw together. If you don't have your military medical file, you don't have people that were around you. That takes, you're down to a 5% win rate chance succession, even though you were injured in service. Do you know what I mean? So that is vital. Before you come out, full copy of your army medical file, full copy of your dental report, any incidents you were involved in while they're fresh, write down who was there, what happened at what time, and get them documented. Photocopy them 100 times and give them to different family members. You've always got that. So when you put in your first claim, you've got everything in place. Your cases, I'm not saying your case is watertight, but you're 90% of the road there that you're not going to have 30 years or 40 years of fighting. It should be slightly easier. I'm not saying it will be, but your case is sort of more presentable. If it goes in front of a tribunal, they've got to look at it. He's presented all this evidence. Did it happen in service? Yes, it did. You know what? Armed Forces compensation scheme, I don't know how that works. I'm still learning about that. But they might give them X tariff with this bolt on. So that I'd be saying that to every veteran. But the problem you've got is everybody leaves service. They run out the gates going, yep, I'm out. It's not until it comes to you put in your first claim and it comes back to bite you in the backside. And I know veterans that have not got their military medical file. And then 15 years later, they're trying to put in a claim and they put in a request. I believe it may be Glasgow you put in. And when they request a military medical file, it turns up and there's 60% missing. That's the other problem you've got. So I think requesting it while you're in service, you can also do a request when you're out service and match them up. So if you're 50 pages short, you can go back to Glasgow and go, where's page 1, 7, 8, 9, and you've got 2 identical bundles then. And then that's you start to present your evidence for your war pension or Armed Forces compensation scheme claim. It just makes life easier. But nobody has made a video on it. To me and you could sit and make a video and go, right, okay, Gary, what would John, Brian, Billy, Frank, how would you go about doing this? Right, this is how we do it. Make a video on it. Help veterans. We do this first. Like, what would happen next? You do this. How do you challenge it? You can ask for a review, or you can take it to an appeal. What happens at the appeal? How should you present your statement of case? Why do we bring case laws into a statement? We can talk about that further down the line, but I think it would be good to make a video solely on that all veterans know where to go, how to present a case. The problem is, unless you've got the banner book or you've got a sort of backing or help the other veterans, it's a mess. It is an absolute minefield. People leave, they put in a claim, they think because it's got Ministry of Defence, the statement of case arrives when they're challenging injury, they don't read it, they rock up at the tribunal, there's no evidence in it, there's no GP file, no injuries in service, the veteran loses his tribunal, walks out the door and sat back and goes, well, this took 5 years, is it worth me challenging? No, 90% walk away. Right. Just walk.
I mean, in some of the cases as well, you could leave service, think, oh yeah, I'm all right, and go into life, and then 20 years down the line, there could be some kind of traumatic incident in your life, and all of a sudden you're back in Belfast in 1972. Right. It can happen at any time. Yeah. So you do need that trail of evidence for sure, and I suppose even access to some kind of information as to your well-being before service as well. As a comparison. What I'm going to do now, because looking at it, we've got a hell of a lot of comments stacked up.
That's fine.
Where people have made comments. We'll run through for the last 10, 15 minutes or so, just address what some people have said. Before I do that, I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us tonight with this very, very important subject. It is so vital, where we discuss what's going on with veterans and basically the way they're treated when they come out. They need the support. It's quite obvious that the system in place isn't fit for purpose. It needs a boot up the backside, and it needs to work for these people that give everything for this country of ours. So we need to start this conversation where we need to start getting people talking about this, and through talk you affect change. So it's been very, very useful. And as I said at the beginning, if everyone can give it the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, because there will be more stuff coming on this. And certainly if you are on social media, please share it, because it is ever so important. So let's turn to the comments now and have a look. First of all, Craig has signed up to the channel memberships for Andy the Gabby Cabby. I appreciate your support, Craig, very much indeed. And I have a strong suspicion I know what Craig that is, judging by the parachute in the picture, so I appreciate it. Michael, government can afford 8 million on aliens a day, but F all for our own. Sick. Well, that says it all in that statement, doesn't it? Right there. Priorities, veterans should be, and they're not. Carl McPhee, my doctor worked for the mob. He's very good at mental health. I mean, you know, you saw this, didn't you, where we were discussing earlier the qualifications of some of these medical advisors. They need to be, you know, well qualified.
Yeah.
Butts unplugged. I love that. All veterans should be treated with respect for fighting for their country and should be thanked for their service. You know, you got. I mean, you look at America and you go back to the time of Vietnam, a war that became very, very unpopular in the end. And I've heard reports of you know, soldiers coming home from that getting vilified and spat at, and you know, how dare you get involved there. But other than that, in general, veterans are revered. They're treated like absolute royalty, and they're not in this country. They're not, and they should be. Pamela Kane, has anyone experienced if a veteran is a high rank, the better they are treated by medical staff? That's a good question. So if you've got an NCO, you know, corporal, sergeant, RSM, whatever, come out and they have problems, and then you've got a captain, lieutenant, major, colonel, or whatever, is there any evidence that one is being treated better than the other? What do you think?
Well, do you know what? I've looked into this in sort of the last couple of years and reached out to some other legal services or parts of charities. Now, to me, I would think, looking at it now, if you're an officer, I think I've got an officers' association, which I think opens up. You know, I don't think I've ever heard a high-ranking officer complain about his war disablement pension or his armed forces compensation scheme yet. If you look at all the complaints and veterans that are reaching out, they're all sort of come to Sergeant Major sort of down. You know, I've reached out to some people and they've says, you're an ex-officer, not we can't help. And doing a little bit of digging, I'm thinking, is that why no officers come forward and say, you know, I was a major, I'm now struggling with my army war pension? Or did we go down a completely different route? Do you know what I mean? And these, right. I can probably say it. The Veterans Minister working in the OVA, Johnny Mercer, talks on about lived experience. Because do you know what? Live a day in my shoes or somebody else's shoes. Do you know what? Putting a claim with my name on it, or Brian, or Billy, or John, and sit and watch how that claim unfolds. Do you know, sit and look at the process. Has he claimed for injuries? I don't know. Has he claimed for PTSD? I don't know. But to me, it's a them and us. I think it's a them and us. And it's maybe not their fault. Do you know what I mean? The officers' faults. But I just think if If you've got why should an officer be treated any different if that is the case? I may be wrong. For a private, if they've served in the same, countries, if they've been on the same tour, been on the same patrol, why should there be? Why is there no officers coming forward? So I believe personally that they go down a different route.
I mean, mental health is such a minefield. I mean, if you're an officer in charge of, several hundred men, and you make a decision which leads to a lot of fatalities, you could carry guilt, but it's the same for a soldier lower down the ranks on the battlefield. What if I did that instead of that? It's you're all in the same boat at the end of the day. So, I get where you're coming from totally. Let's have a look at some of these other comments. Here was another one here. Finbar, are there any pre-warnings given at recruiting stage about possible mental health problems? Well, that's a good question. Well, what do you say to that? I bet I know what the answer is going to be, but I'll let you say it.
I'll tell you what happened when I went into the recruitment office. The sergeant that was in the recruitment office asked me what I wanted to join. So I told him I wanted to do role A. He told me there was no jobs available. You can do role B. And I says, well, I'm not into that. So at that time, it was a computer-based competency test.
Right.
So I went in, sat in the front of the computer. The door opened and he says, how far have you got? I says, I've got my name, my date of birth, and my home address. Came in and slapped me in the back of the head. He says, that's you. You're done, son. Come through and I'll show you the roles available. So he had with this folder, opened the folder, the job you're looking for, there's no vacancies, but we can send you here. Once you're in here, you transfer into role A that you wanted to do. No discussion about anything. And I met him a couple of years later. Right. He was giving us injections. And he was in the recruitment office. There was no discussion of mental health, where he would go and what are you doing. Now that was going back 90s-ish. I don't know what's changed now. I think if they discussed it now, you would sway off. If you've got a young lad now, 19-year-old, working in Lidl, 12 quid an hour, goes into the careers office, they're not going to say, by the way, what are you on? I'm on 37,000 a year. Well, you'll be starting about 11. You could end up with A, B, C, D, and E. You could end up here, and here. This is what training's like. Here's a video you've got to be crawling about here, wet, cold, freezing, starving. What's the guy going to do? He's got to go, 1, I need to protect my mental health. 2, losing 20 odd grand a year. I'm home at night, working for Lidl or Aldi. I can see why now nobody's joining the military. So I would say, I don't know if they've got anything in place or it's been discussed. Maybe during your training, maybe they give you a talk on mental health possibly and how to reach out and but I believe in the recruitment office, I don't even know if the recruitment offices are still indeed open or.
I don't. I mean, it's something we'll have to look into. I mean, I remember, in 1994, I was 16 and I was in the RAF recruitment office with my old man because I wanted to join the RAF. Yeah. And I remember saying what I wanted to do. Now, I remember being given a sheet of paper with a list of trades that I could do, not what I wanted to do. And it was a recruitment sergeant, and it was very bare, very basic, very, I still have memories of it now.
And all that is at that time, you were a number, and he's wanting you to go to the battalion that's most undermanned. So if I came in behind you and say an RAF were looking for 200 people in the next year, and you went in and wanted to join the Marines, and I came in behind you, wanted to join the Paras, 99% chance me and you were going to go that RAF route to solely fill. They're not thinking about you as an individual. That's what happened with me. I went to a battalion that was so undermanned, and then when I joined, they said you can transfer. I tried to transfer 5 times. I couldn't get out of the battalion because they're so undermanned. So whether that's changed with the recruitment, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'll have to try and find out. Let's go and have a look at some more of these comments because a lot of people done so. Ollie, why do you think they have a 50-year gag order on military personnel so we don't reveal the activity we've been involved in? Michael, charities shouldn't be doing this unless they're funded by MOD, duty of care. Duty of care is the thing there, isn't it? There appears to be a bit of a failure in that.
Yeah, definitely.
The Lodger, SAFA is a good charity. I sit on the ABF, the Soldiers Charity. My friend suffered from CPTSD. C meaning chronic, is it? Pardon my ignorance.
Could be, I think it could be chronic or combat. Might be combat. I don't know if there's such a thing as combat PTSD, chronic PTSD.
Come out the other side and now runs a business supporting veterans and companies. That's wonderful, wonderful. You know, you get the help and then give back. That's, you know, brilliant. Sylvia, it's your pure guts that helps others to speak out. Thank you. Well, that's where we need to do more of this. You know, these stories and these experiences aren't covered by mainstream and they're swept under the carpet. It's like they're inconvenient truths. And, you know, no one wants to talk about it. The Lodger, we had a charity event where a former Major General gave a talk. One point he raised was the weight of the backpack soldiers have to carry when on tour. It can contribute to back injuries. I've heard that myself before with all the kit one has to carry when you're out on marches, out on patrol, you know, all that compression on your spine. Later down the line, when you get older, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever you happen to be, it's going to get you. And then, as we discussed earlier, you've got to get that claim, you know, the evidence there in advance.
Well, on that point, I was going to say it at one of my tribunals. I'd done a breakdown of weight of my role and what I'd done, and the last tour was tabbing on tarmac. Now there was grass round the area, but they tabbed us on tarmac with this weight, and it came in, I think, about 196 pounds in weight. So I presented that to the tribunal.
Right.
But the Veterans UK rep brought everybody's attention to me having to move my laptop slightly on a table that weighed 2 pounds in weight. That he tried to use that against me, and I actually broke down on my tribunal, and I called him what I thought he was. I told the judge, we've just had a 30-minute conversation and with the medical advisor, and they looked through my notes and they looked through my rolls. I says, we're talking about carrying 196 pounds in weight, tabbing sometimes twice a day on a tarmac road. And then you've got your own personal fitness, then you've got CO's PT. You're looking at hundreds of runs over an 18-month period, and you're trying to focus on me moving the laptop to get a better signal and lifting a table that I think weighed 2 pounds in weight. It's a cheap B&M table, small tiny coffee table, 12-inch circle top, MDF, 3 very sparrow legs. And I went, how dare you? How dare you? So it shows you that even at a tribunal, the Veterans UK rep, is watching on live. Now, the tribunal could be 5 years later. You're looking at medical evidence for 5 years ago. Bringing in current day now is not going to affect the claim, because you're looking. They throw everything they can. But I agree with it. Whoever it was that commented there. Do you know what? The weights are unbelievable. Depends what role you're in.
I mean, you say 198 pounds. That's the equivalent of like carrying me on your back for hours at a time.
Yeah.
It's going to take its toll. I think I'm a bit less than that now. I've been trying, but you get the point.
Yeah.
Right, let's have a few more, and then we'll wrap things up. Absolutely Average. Russ, hello, my friend. That's another YouTuber who I'm associated with. Please, if you haven't done so, go and check out Absolutely Average on YouTube. Really nice fella, good friend of mine. We're well overdue a breakfast. Medical advisors for Veteran UK are like insurance company fraud departments, trying to show you up as a liar and a cheat.
Spot on.
Yeah, well, this second comment you made quantifies that. Took me 28 years fighting to get my pension.
Spot on.
This is the guy who I mentioned right at the beginning, who I said, nearly 30 years. It was actually him. I didn't want to name him, but he's named himself. So that's absolutely fine. Blue Angel, this chap is pouring his heart out, telling people how it was for him. He wants others not to suffer like himself. That's it. That is it exactly. We need to just get this out there. We need to get this out there. Absolutely average again. Does Veteran A belong to his local veterans hub?
Well, do you know what? The local veterans hub, I don't know if there is one. I popped into my local Royal British Legion, which was dying of death, and I wonder, we've got a couple of barracks near us, but the young soldiers are not wanting to pop up to the Legion for a pint. So when I walked in and met people in the Legion, when I walked in, I think it was 8 people. None of them had served in the military. And I'm like, that's really not going to work. I'm thinking about setting up a veterans hub, or I don't know. There's still, I've offered charities my assistance to help other veterans with war pension claims. Everyone's rejected. But you know why? You don't know who's getting funded by who. So if you've suddenly got a veterans charity that's got 100 veterans and 99.9% of them are winning their war pension claims or armed forces compensations claim, I'm throwing no span on the works, but they're not wanting me to help. Do you know what I mean? So maybe a veterans hub or something could be done. That's absolutely average. That's what we can touch base with each other and see what happens, or maybe get them on another live. And
Russ said that he will come on. He sent me a message about that a couple of days ago. Said he'll come on and talk about his experience with all this. I've got both of you on Twitter, so when we're off air, I'll send a link to Russ's profile on Twitter to you, and then you can hook up that way. That'll be useful. And Russ is quite determined as veterans go. When he makes his mind up he's going to do something, he bloody well gets on with it. So
that's what we need.
That'd be a good contact. Couple more. Right, I got the same working for NHS. Injured my back from repetitive strain injury, plus a severe tear doing my work, and consultant inferred that my injury was caused from my time in forestry 15 years before. It's disgusting. They do anything to try and get out of, the right thing. I've got a friend of mine that spent years training as a nurse. She had to come out because of, back injuries. A career gone, and where's the support? Last one, Mike. Britain has always treated its veterans like shit. Best in the world. Whew, always the establishment that lets us down. I think that is the point, isn't it? You come out, you just dumped, right, we're done with you now, off you go. And doesn't seem to be the support when you try and look for it. There isn't any. And one more comment. The C in CPSD is complex.
Thank
you very much, Graham. Appreciate that. Right, everyone. Sorry to those that we didn't get to with the comments. I always like to interact and put across some of your views. I want to thank Veteran A very, very much for coming on this evening. It's a very eye-opening chat, and we get to dive deep into the world of what's going on, in a system that should work right, and it should work for the veterans, and it obviously isn't. This will be the first of, hopefully many lives and other bits of information about this. I have a guy in the background who is politically connected, who hopefully will start getting involved in this themselves at some point. But for now, I said, we need to start talking about it. We need to start being all over this. So, it's a beginning. It's a beginning. What I like to do with all of my guests before we part ways is give them the last words. So is there anything you'd like to say before we go off air? Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you froze up there.
Froze up there.
Yeah, I usually like to give the guest to the stream last words, before we go. So is there anything you'd like to say before we go off air?
I think that I think the problem maybe I didn't mention as well is a lot of MPs know about this, and we have hundreds of veterans reached out to their MP. Their MPs brushed it under the carpet. It's went right to the Office for Veterans Affairs. Evidence presented to him that things are gone incorrectly, and still nothing's being done. It's been in the media. Yeah, I can probably mention the newspaper. Is it okay to mention the newspaper?
Daily Mirror?
Daily Mirror, spot on. That's the one. If anybody wants to Google Daily Mirror war pension issues, it'll bring up a story. An MP spoke about it in Parliament. If anybody wants to have a look and just Google Owen Thompson, SNP, speaking in Parliament, he done a great speech. He was pushing for a public inquiry into this. And basically somebody somewhere has put the lid on the can and went, do you know what? But so we need to get out there. I think the MPs know what's happening. Veterans shouldn't be suffering. 400 odd suicides on Johnny Mercer's watch. He's only been in position 4 or 5 years.
Right.
How many of these veterans have been on the war pension claim, waiting 30 years to get a claim? Some veterans are getting claims reduced. It's just an absolute mess. But what I would do is thank all the comments. It's appreciated, support. And I think this is the way, starting point, hopefully get veterans on every week and then maybe do some videos of how to do claims, get a group on, get your mate on that was popped his head up and have an open group and let everybody see that it's not just me. Let 9 or 10 veterans that don't know each other, never served together, let them have an open speech. How does that affect you? How can we fix it? What's gone wrong? So I think this is a great starting point, and thank you for allowing me to come on.
Very welcome. Very welcome. If you can hang on when I go off air, because I just want to talk to you about a couple of things when we're disconnected from everybody. It won't be long. Yeah, thank you very much, everybody. As always, you've been great. All the regulars. If there's any new guys there that watch us for the first time, please make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, because we're going to be covering a lot more of this. I think it's a can of worms that requires reopening. It really is awful, really awful. Videos from 8 o'clock tomorrow. There'll be more content coming out as usual on the channel. And as always, I look forward to talking to you again when I'm back on your screens then. And enjoy the rest of your evenings. Toodaloo.